want to and to go to Sound Vision's Facebook. I want to encourage you to subscribe and to also tell you that there is going to be, and let us introduce our news broadcasters, which I think is very, very important because they do, I mean, a hell of a job getting the news from around the world and locally to us every day. Now, for today's show, for which I am about to jump out of my seat, we have Mr. Yaya Jata Fanusie. I am just so excited and so honored to be speaking with him. I don't know what to do with myself. I haven't talked to him in a while. But let me tell you first a little bit about him. He is the African American Muslim Communities Analyst. He is an Adjunct Senior Fellow at the Center for New American Security. And his research focuses on crypto, blockchain, and central bank digital currencies. And trust me, I have no clue as to what that means. I don't have that much money. So therefore, I don't know anything. Um, he's been in government for a while. He did work as an economic and counterterrorism analyst in the CIA, but he's also branched out. He's worked with law enforcement, U.S. military personnel, and White House level policymakers to boot. He also teaches and knows stuff. And today, while I'm going to force him to teach us something about whatever cryptocurrency is, I'm also going to ask him. We're going to focus this program on the Jabbari Lincoln Files, but he has another podcast kind of thing going called Chatter. And I have to admit, that is so far above my pay grade. Um, but I am so curious. I don't know what to do. Salaam alaikum and welcome.
Wa
Yaya.
wa alaikum assalam. It's wonderful to be here, Dr. Amina.
Oh, let me tell you, you are so smoking. Okay, I would like for you to tell all of us a little bit about you,
Hmm.
your family. Yaya Jata Fanusi is not a common name. Um, your kids grew up while I looked away for 5 seconds. They just grew up and out.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about you and your family.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm part of a family, part of many families. I mean, I have to, reference my where I came from because you mentioned my name. So I'm the product of my mother and father. My father is from originally from Sierra Leone. He came here to the United States in the '60s. Met my mother. My mother is African American, born here in the U.S., and they met in California. And so I was born and raised in California, and I grew up. So I get the name really from my on my father's side. Um, a bit of an interesting note, people often wonder, was I raised Muslim, etc. But I actually converted. I converted to Islam while I was in college, back in the old days in the '90s, in when I was at UC Berkeley. And but since for the past 20 plus years, I've been out on the East Coast. I came to the East Coast in graduate school. I was in New York for a few years, and then I met my wife, Fatima Fanusie, Fatima Abdul Tawab, now Fanusie, and we've been married for almost 23 years, and we live here in the DC Baltimore area in Maryland, and we have three wonderful children. And people probably know my wife more than me because she's a historian and scholar. You probably hear of Dr. Fanusie more than
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
but yeah, we're here doing what we can.
Well, you're doing an awful lot. I'm telling you, I am just so huh. I don't even know how to put, and I don't know who told me that the Jabari Lincoln files were there. And after they told me they were there, I turned it on in the car with my husband, and it was just funny. We listened to the preview, which I'm going to play for the audience in a minute. Pull the car over because I was determined. I said, well, I got to get through episode 1. Then we looked up and we were at episode 2, and we said, okay, at least we got to get in our own driveway, right? I mean, it just got better. But I want to go back before the Jabbari Lincoln Files.
Mm.
Mystery writing is such a craft.
Hmm.
And I want to know what got you into mystery writing. You go from money, of which I don't have any, to mystery writing.
Mm. Yeah, it's an evolution. I think one thing is I've always loved puzzles and brain teasers. Even going back to my college days, I remember back in when I was a student and I taught one summer. I did the Freedom Schools in Oakland, California, one summer, and I learned a few brain teasers, and I would use those brain teasers to entertain the students. But I love this process of there's something you have to figure out, and there are clues. And when I would give it to the students, I never give hints. Or I may give a hint, but I never tell the puzzle. They have to figure it out. So I've always, I think, liked that. I think for me, the writing just came from loving some mysteries myself. There's an author.
Mm.
Maybe I can go into later the history of the Jabbari Lincoln name, where that name came from. But there was an author who a couple decades ago I used to read his mystery thrillers, and I used to like how this author, I'll just say his name is Jeffrey Deaver. He's just a mystery thriller.
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
if any of you remember the old movie with Denzel Washington, The Bone Collector from the 90s,
Yes,
that was
yes.
based off of Jeffrey Deaver. He's a mystery writer.
Right.
And a
Right.
thing I like to, so here's a little interesting tidbit. I don't know if you remember the name of the detective in that series. His name was Lincoln Rhymes.
Yes.
Lincoln Rhymes, and he was a detective. And I love how in those stories you would learn about the mystery, but you would also learn about whatever that world, the world that he had built. You would learn about police detective work, and you would learn about things. And I thought I wanted to take an approach with this podcast story. The podcast story itself didn't start out how it is. I mean, I actually was doing podcasting since 2015, and I had an old podcast called Rhythm of Wisdom, the Rhythm of Wisdom podcast, and it's still available. And Rhythm of Wisdom it's dramatic nonfiction storytelling. And what I do in that podcast is tell stories that are based on my time working in national security, but also my cultural background and upbringing, traveling to time I spent in Africa when I was in college. All these stories, I tell them in the Rhythm of Wisdom podcast, but they're all true. And then several years, a couple years ago, I decided, you know what? Why don't I write a fictional thriller and make it a spy sort of mystery thriller where the protagonist is a Muslim, a Muslim intelligence officer, and some interesting things that he goes through, and where there's a global intrigue and there's technology and all this stuff. Put it in a story, and that's what the Jabbari Lincoln Files has.
But how do you, for those in the audience, the would be, I think I maybe in some future incarnation be able to write it? I know writers use storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you conceive of it?
Well, probably the first step for me is having the end first, right? Having the where you're going to end up, having that be the first part of the story. So what is it that you want to happen? I think you have to build from that, and then you have to work your way back. But I will, if I can kind of be very sort of transparent, I'll let you know that since this was my first sort of almost like a novel writing, when I started it, I didn't really know a lot of the rules for writing a novel.
Well,
I'll just be very honest. I didn't. I just did it. I said, let me start writing. Now, when I was halfway through, I started to learn more, and I had to do so many revisions. I started to learn more about story structure and plot development and character arc. So I started writing something, and I had the end in mind. I wrote that last chapter first. And then as I started
Oh,
writing, yeah, I wrote the last chapter first because I said, you know what, this is what I want to happen. Jabbari Lincoln, he's going to end here. And then,
no,
then
no, 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 no. I don't play in.
what do you mean?
No,
Oh,
no, no. There's no end. There's
okay,
season one
that's true.
that has
Okay.
8 episodes.
Yes. Well, one more. Nine more. There's one more episode happening this week, later this week, inshallah.
Okay, but you can't do this to me. I'm a young woman who wants to stay young, and I need season two.
Oh, we are working on. We that's what we want to do as well.
You know,
So the best way to have season two is
mm,
to make season one a huge hit.
well, that's why I am pushing the show, and I can't thank you enough for agreeing to come on. I mean, I'm limited and I do a little bit of social media, but all the old women are listening to it. I'll put it like that.
Okay.
And trying to push it because we also don't know how podcasts work.
Mm, right.
And when you told us a little bit, but I want to hear, not to go into the story because I'm gonna do that in depth. But how does one figure out who the characters are gonna be?
Mm-hmm. So there is a it's in the outlining, I think.
Oh,
So first of all, for me, figuring out where I want the story to go, at least for season one. And then
mhm,
as I thought about the season one, you have to think about, well, what is your character going through? What is your character? Because you have to have a character go through something, and there
mhm,
has to be some change. There has to be some struggle. And so for that character to have that, then you have to have others around the character. There may be an antagonist. I will say that it was a process, and actually, I will say that input from other people helped me to develop the characters. And again, with no spoilers, but I will say, well, this is not a spoiler. I will say they're important characters. So Jabbari Lincoln is the main character, but
mhm.
he's a family man, right?
Right,
He has a family. His wife is a prominent part, and even though she's not in the intelligence world, she has her own sort of life and plays a role in what happens. But
right,
and also characters, sometimes it's just fun stuff, because sometimes I think, like, you know what, there should be a character that's very interesting, like in the spy thriller genre, you have certain types of characters. You will have a villain, right? So I had to
right,
figure out, well, what types of villains could I have? And I also thought about locations. So again,
mm,
without giving away too much stuff, the story goes in different countries and different areas. So I had to think about what happens in this country. What type of personalities could I bring from this country? There's a particular country that I know where there's a lot that goes on, and so you think, for me, it's just thinking about how can I help the character move and get to where he wants to get, and he has to have support, as right. There's the nemesis
right,
or the
right.
antagonist, but then there's the support. There's got to be people who help the character along the way, and so you just kind of brainstorm and flesh it out, and figure out in the outline, so where would these people show up?
Because one of the things that is so awesome, as our audience will hear in a minute or so, is I traveled with you.
Mm.
Where did that music come from? My husband said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a darn helicopter." He said, "That's not a helicopter." I said, "Yes, it is a helicopter." Then we went to a train. No, that's not a train. Um, but it was energizing.
Mm, mhm. So the story, the podcast, when and people will hear it. There is storytelling, sorry. There's a narration, and then there's really background music, sound design.
Mhm.
And where that comes from is just, so I myself do the production. I do the background music myself, and that probably comes from, in myself college years. I had a radio show when I was in college. So yeah, I had a radio show. It was a late.
You're talented,
No,
dude.
no, I mean, it was just for me, the artist, there was always this artistic side. So even though, my major was economics, but this was in the 90s. So I was really much into the creative arts. I did poetry, lyricism. I used to have people come on my radio show to freestyle, rap freestyles. It was really, underground hip hop was kind of the world that I was in the
Right.
90s. So I always like to, if you can imagine, when my radio show was at 1 a.m. to 3:30 in the morning, Friday nights or Saturday morning. So I would always play instrumentals, and then I would talk over the instrumental, or have some friends,
Oh,
do
okay.
lyricism. And so what was always important to me was, how can you find the right sort of beat or instrumental for the mood of the conversation, or of the speech or the
Right.
prose. And so what I do with the Jabbari Lincoln Files is, many times when I'm writing, I have a certain mood in mind. So what I would usually do often is start creating the track, the background music, and write at the same time, and write when I have the track. So I'm sort of writing, but it's fitting the mood of the background music. So I think it helps with the mood, and for the visual, for you to take for you to visualize where we're going in the story.
Well, you do. I mean, it's awesome. I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to play the preview to get everybody's mouth watering for the Jabbari Lincoln Files. This is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen, and I'm having a wonderful conversation with Yaya Fanusie about the Jabbari Lincoln Files for Muslim Network TV. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen with Critical Talk, a production of Sound Vision and Muslim Network TV. I am having a wonderful conversation with Yaya Fanusie. And what we're getting ready to do now, and I'm going to ask my audience, sit back because you're in for a treat extraordinaire. Let me tell you, if it came out on CD, I would break the bank and buy it tomorrow. But let me ask my producer to cue up the preview of the wonderful Jabbari Lincoln Files.
3 years ago, the Rhythm of Wisdom podcast went on hiatus. During that time, we at Sine Curve Studios have been working on a new production, a spy thriller. We're pleased to present to you the Jabbari Lincoln Files, a fictional audio adventure. Jabbari Lincoln is the CIA's top financial analyst. He happens to be Muslim, and he's at the top of his professional game when he is unfairly suspected of being disloyal to the United States and gets suspended by the agency. Dejected and disgraced, he takes on a central bank consulting gig in Nigeria. But as he uncovers a sophisticated cyber financial plot, hidden forces try to eliminate him. Cut off from his family, friends, and intelligence colleagues, he travels across 3 continents in order to figure out who is pulling the strings and hopefully to try to prevent the onslaught of a global financial apocalypse. In this financial technology spy thriller, the question becomes, will a cryptocurrency help save the world? Or could it help destroy it? The Jabbari Lincoln Files, Season 1.
I want her to play the 2-minute video where we hear that dynamic music. It's called Preview, I think.
Oh, the pre-brief. The pre-brief?
Pre-brief.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So Miriam,
Mhm.
play the pre-brief, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pre-brief. In a few days, you will begin receiving transmissions on this channel. Your first report will come from the Deputy Chief of Operations. She will give you access to the necessary background data and get you read into the mission. Please note, the entire briefing will take several weeks to transmit the whole set of files. The information is sensitive. Until then, your assignment is to stay posted to this hidden channel. You will receive a new transmission every Thursday. The full briefing will only be done by audio. Your memory may be the only way to keep these files secure. As you know, our world seems to be on the brink of chaos. Order seems to be disintegrating. There is great danger ahead. And for this mission, there are only a select few we can trust. You are one of those few. You are cleared for this mission. You might not have been expecting it, but you will adapt, and you will stay adept. Your entry on duty date is January 19th. Prepare then to be read into the Jabbari Lincoln Files. Until then, share this message only with those you trust. And please, be careful out there.
Thank you. Now tell me that that doesn't grab you. Made me pull my car over. I mean, it grabs you because it's us, and it grabs you because it's so well done. I'm looking. I want to. How did you decide on the opening?
Alhamdulillah. You mean for that pre-brief?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, yeah, alhamdulillah. It's I think that what I'm trying to do, or what I was doing with that is really trying to connect with the audience in that, I love imagination. I
Yeah.
love, I love imagination. I love, it's funny. Well, here's a funny thing. This will show you kind of things I like to do. So I remember back, especially in the early days, of early marriage and 20 or so years ago, sometimes with friends, like my brother-in-law, James, when we would talk about, um, we would talk about uh, our wives having their birthdays, right? Because our wives, well, I don't need to get into too much, but basically helping our wives during their birthdays, and we would call it an operation. We would, right, the operation, and we would talk about how we would plan the operation, make sure it had to be covert, make sure they wouldn't know, and we would kind of get into this operation. How are we going to plan the birthday surprise? What are we going to do, and all of that? And so that was fun, and I think that's what people like. People like imagination. They like something that is different, and I didn't want this to be a listening thing where it's just, oh, okay, I'm listening to a story. No, I want the listener, for this production, we want the listener to be a part of it. So you're listening about this because you're a part of this world. We want to create a world where you are going to be in tune with it, and you're rooting for the hero, but you're also going to be a part of the story as well.
Well, you definitely did that. Kudos. I mean, because I'm getting something that's designed for me as a trusted person.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talked a little bit about character development, but you also used your experience as a CIA analyst to take us on a journey through a part of the society, the world, that we don't often get a bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm saying, oh my God, this is a mess. And I'm not going to give it away because I want people to listen. But using one's personal history and experiences to come up with this fictional setting. And we talked about Deaver, and so my Deaver is my serial killer guy. No, wait a minute, is it Deaver?
It does.
Use Deaver and Sanders and Patterson. I'm a mystery buff, but I also love Walter Mosley until he goes off the deep end. Trying to figure out what do I do with it, except it is pure enjoyment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what hopefully a good story does. A good story should. So one thing I really enjoyed from some of the mystery writing I had read in the past was teaching you. So like you said, the world of intelligence, national security, all of that, right? That's not a world that most people can intimately, be around, right? For obvious reasons, But what can a good story do? A good story can take you into it so that you, not knowing anything about the world, can then learn about it and understand it. The good, the bad, and the ugly, even, right? And so what I think the way to think about Jabbari Lincoln Files is it is a totally fictional story. The character is fictional. The story is fictional. It has realistic elements, right? Obviously, because I'm drawing on things I may have seen or witnessed or experienced, or even certain language, right? The language that comes from that world in the CIA, and I use that language so that those people who are from that world will listen to it, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, this is this has some truth to it. Now, of course, I'm making up stuff, and it's a thriller, so it's not a true story. But the intention is to take you into it and to teach you, teach the listener about a world, and then to build the plot around that.
Well, also for especially the African American, but also the larger Muslim community, the fact that the guy is Muslim and the stuff he encounters at work, which I'm not going to tell you all, you got to go listen, is interesting because I think everybody has a certain set of encounters. But I think that the fact that he's Muslim, that I'm not listening for once to a bunch of profanity or
Mm,
vulgarity. I mean, that was such a relief you just don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, the other side of it was weaving it in and the Quranic quotes, which were not out of place. I
Mm,
have some women in my book club listening who are not Muslim, and
mm,
they're saying, "Oh, I got this," and I had to go look this up, you know, to see, but were not put off.
mm, mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think so. This is where we're getting to the idea of culture and how do we? It's not even weaving our faith. I actually think that the way to approach art is, so as a Muslim, it's like the scripture and is really the foundation. It's the foundation of what we do. So and the beautiful things we create should sort of be based on not based in the sense of, the foundation is the worldview of I guess of the Quran. I think is the framing. Now it doesn't mean that the story is just for Muslims, and like you said, right?
yeah,
Non-Muslims, plenty of non-Muslims enjoy the show, so it's not preaching or anything. But
no,
the framing, I mean, I don't think this is so new. I think that if you think about art from centuries past, Islamic and even from other religious background, people of faith craft beautiful things. They create stories, they create art, but they're it's based on something. So I think that's the approach. And I think, Muslim history shows that people start with revelation, and then it sort of guides how you interact with the world.
yeah, but I think that is a lovely take on it because there's two. I mean, there's lots of stuff. There's the hip hop, there's the spoken word, and it hits pockets. I think the other thing that has made me your best marketing tool is the fact that this hits all generations.
Mm,
I can listen to it whether I'm 80 or 18. I
mm,
can, it doesn't matter which religious community I'm in. My color doesn't matter. I can lay back and really tune up my ears for a change
mm,
and let
mhm.
my mind just float along with Jabari. And just for the audience, who is Jabari Lincoln?
So Jabari Lincoln is a character. So I have to make it clear because people will be like, "Are you Jabari Lincoln?" No, I'm not Jabari Lincoln. I'm just a writer. I'm just one creating a story. I have to make that known. Um, Jabari Lincoln is a CIA analyst who happens to be Muslim, and he is the top. He's the top financial analyst. His world is financial intelligence. He
Oh,
figures out how the money is moving. He figures out that sort of thing. And he's a family man. He's married with 3 children. He's an African American Muslim. And you'll learn, as even in the first episode, this is not a spoiler, he comes from a Muslim family. You'll learn a little bit about his
yeah.
background, African American Muslim, his parents. There's some interesting backstory there. But he
Mhm.
is, yeah, he has, and he's someone who is, he's observant in his faith. Now, it doesn't mean he's perfect. Doesn't mean doesn't have struggles and
Oh,
challenges.
it is.
Right, right, exactly. He's not a perfect man, but
Yeah,
he's someone who's, he's trying to live as a Muslim. And the what you said about the vulgarity and things, purposefully are not in this, because I think, hey, many of us we're looking for entertainment that we don't have to shield our kids from bad language.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so I wanted that for it to be clean, and for it to be, because there are situations in the story which could be challenging. I mean, he's exposed to a lot, but the thread is that how does a believing person holding on to faith, how do they deal with these circumstances? That's the approach.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I used to. Well, I'm just. I wish I could have a billboard. Maybe I'll put up a billboard. I don't know how much
And
billboards cost. Anyway,
I need to hire you as my marketing consultant.
let me tell you. I listen. Yours is the first in my young age podcast I have tuned into every Thursday. One, I think it was between episode 6 and 7. I don't know, somewhere in there. it was messing up and I couldn't get it and I was freaking out. I was walking around the house saying, like, what's going on? I asked my granddaughter, well, can you pull it up? And she's saying, Granny, something is not working. Go to Facebook. And I'm saying, Facebook? Why I gotta go to Facebook? Slightly older people have difficulty. But what I found also was a community
Mm.
of people. And if you would take just a few minutes to talk about that Facebook community, which is commenting on the Jabbari Lincoln Files, and then tell the listeners how to get to it.
Right. Yeah. And that we started that sort of towards the middle of the season. We realized, oh, we didn't really have a way for people to interact and discuss. So what we did was we just created a Facebook page. It's called the Jabbari Lincoln Files page, I think, or fan page. And it's Jabbari. Everyone hopefully can see the spelling, Jabbari, Lincoln Files. And it's just an open public group. And so we put that there so that there could be discussion as the stories come out, as the episodes come out. So it's on Facebook. You can find it there. And also I should add that we recently also got a Twitter page as well. If you look for Jabbari Lincoln Files, it's also there. And we also have a blog, and we may make some changes with the blog, but what we did is we created the JabbariLincoln.com. And that is a blog, which is right now what we have is it's the universe of Jabbari Lincoln. It's the character blogging himself. And there's some really background material. You can see the blog as some sort of extra material that you may want to read because it
relates. Delicious. Delicious. I'm loving it. I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm talking to you. I'm there. No, I went on the Facebook page and the comments are wonderful. I mean, people like myself are really into it. And then I said, stop reading. You got other stuff to do. Because I'm steady reading, and trying to encourage you to have season 2. I can't help with that. I have an imagination, but I don't write fiction. But
you know what I can add though, maybe you can help because I'll give you a little preview. This is not a spoiler, but what I'm going to release tomorrow, this week, this Thursday, with the final episode of season 1, is a survey, a listener feedback survey. So that'll come out. It'll probably be linked on the podcast. I'll make sure that you get it. But I'm going to ask questions about what do people like, maybe what characters did they like, or what stuff did they not like, maybe. And that may help inform some of what we do in season 2.
Well, let me tell you, I got my I don't like, because George and we got a thing going on, but that's a different issue. But how, before we take one more little short break, how did you put a team together?
Family first.
I have no idea what's behind a podcast. So maybe you want to tell us what's behind the podcast. You're producing it, you're writing. Who else is working?
It's a family affair in many ways. So first of all, I have to give credit to the people around me, family and friends who helped reviewing the story. So I started writing this in 2019, before the pandemic, and I had a chapter. Yeah, so it took a long time. I started writing it, and then I would give, my wife Fatima, brother and sister-in-law, and cousins, just family and friends, and I had them review it, and they provided feedback, etc. So that was it. And then there's one thing that you'll notice, because the narration, there are 2 narrators. So I narrate most of it, but then I also have a character or a narrator called the Deputy Chief of Ops,
right.
and that's Farda Abdul Tawab Brown, and that's my sister-in-law. So she voices that, narrates that, and so she helped with that. And then I had what I did in terms of the team, really just relying on the network. So friends and family, the Muslim community. I reached out about things I didn't know about how to improve my story structure. I would reach out to people in that area, and then just rely on them to help with the review and to provide some advice.
So how does one get a podcast up on that little purple thing with the microphone that says podcast?
Well, in short, it's very relatively easy once you know where to start with a platform. To create a podcast, really all you need to do is upload to one of many podcast platforms, and those platforms then will stream it to Apple, will stream it to Spotify. So you have to start with a specific website. Now there are many out there. There are many out there, but
Oh,
yeah. So as long as you, and there are other ways, obviously there's YouTube podcasting too. Some people go directly to YouTube, but you have to have a podcast platform to then stream out to all the different apps and podcast players that are out there. But your recording is on you. So you could use regular software. You could use just record, you know, they even have apps for some podcasting. If it's just a simple interview where you can just record on your phone, or you can use GarageBand for editing. You could use basic software for editing, recording, and then you just upload it through that podcast platform, and then it'll stream to all the different players that are out there.
And you don't have to pay these players?
You don't. It's all free. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, to use them, they have versions. So there are some that are relatively free, and maybe you can just do limited uploads. But then they have others where you pay $5, $7 a month. Some are $20 a month. You know, but basic, you know, minimum.
Well, I'm going to take another quick break. I want to come back and I want to talk about the chatter. I'm feeling like I need to go back to school for the 19,000th time because it is very unnerving to be dumb about financial matters, to be dumb about cryptocurrency. You know, just read the word and then turn the page, you know. So I want to come back, if you don't mind, and mine your brain for that one too. This is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen with Critical Talk, and I'm having a wonderful chat with Yaya J. Fanusie. What can I say? And the Jabbari Lincoln Files. This is a production of Sound Vision and Muslim Network TV. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen on Critical Talk with Yaya J. Fanusie for Muslim Network TV. and we're having a great time. Now, everybody get out their pencils and notebooks. We're going to get don't have to sign up for school lesson about what the hell is cryptocurrency? What is digital currency? Do some teaching.
Yeah, we don't want to get too technical. I mean, so
Please. No.
I mean, what I would start to say, because you talked about before about central bank digital currencies, there's all these different words out there in terms. This is how I would explain it to people. Don't worry so much about cryptocurrencies. Just know that now we have different digital money formats. Now, the digital money that I know you know about, and everyone, is online banking, PayPal. That's kind of digital money. That's a format. That's, and what that is, that's when a financial institution, they have the bank account or your bank account, and then they do transactions on your behalf. That's digital money. That's the regular, and that's fintech, financial technology. But there about 10, 12 years ago, a new type of digital money format was created. That was Bitcoin. And Bitcoin essentially it's a computer program. It's a distributed computer program where you're not sending money per se. You're just assigning value on this ledger of ownership. So you basically can show that you own a little bit of Bitcoin, and then you can transfer that ownership to another wallet, someone else. So a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, is really just a computer program for digital money where it's all there. It's not like there's a bank account or anything with an institution. It's just a computer programming money. Internet money, some would say. Money that's just based
Wait. Okay.
Mhm.
I got Aminah coin.
Okay.
Stop.
You could.
And to Aminah coin, I'm going to assign every $1 of Aminah coin is equal to $10 USD.
Only if people will pay for that. So you create Aminah coin, and you could do that. Anyone could create one of these cryptocurrencies because there's programming. It's just software, so you could create it. But the question is somebody going to give you $10 for that? Is it worth anything? Is there a demand for it? So there may not be demand. It may just be, oh, I don't want to buy. I'm not going to. So yeah, you can give it to me, but I'm not going to give you regular money for it. So
what are these news stories about people losing billions of dollars in crypto, whatever?
Yeah, from scamming. So this is where I come in, because I am, I'm not a technical expert. Remember, my training has been more on looking at the national security and the financial crime, illicit finance side of things. And so what I have been looking at is, well, how are maybe bad actors using some of this technology? How are they using it for fraud? How are they using it for, North Korea, for, all these illicit activities? So what's in the news a lot is when you hear about these bad things. So because think about it like this, just how you could create Aminah coin, anybody could create this technology, and it really has low barrier to entry. So there's a lot of scams, to be very honest. Because it's kind of like, hey, anybody could create it, and you can build hype about it. You hype things up. There's a lot of fraud and scams. So there's money that gets lost like that, especially when you're not diligent. If you're a regular consumer and you just like hear people saying, oh, this coin is good, and then you give them your money for that coin, you have to be very careful.
I'm getting it a little bit better now.
Yeah, I mean, there's much more. I mean, I'm talking, that's sort of the illicit side. We could talk more about the technology in itself and efficiencies, because there's a lot of inefficiencies in regular payments. And so there's a lot of really potential things that you could do with computerized money, computer program money. There's a lot of potential innovation that's there. And that's the other side of it. So it's kind of a mix, but that's why I open out by saying now we just have computer science technology that's impacting finance. You also have something called central bank digital currency. That's a whole other show.
But you have.
Yeah.
But, I think our communities especially, whether they're investing or giving away money or not, need to know.
Mm-hmm.
It is important to know and to not be afraid of knowing. what it is, and stop flipping the pages.
Especially when what's going on so much now in the news is all these crises around
Right.
banking and all these new innovate. There's a lot that's happening, and I think, yeah, you're right. Our community needs to understand what's going to be on the horizon, because there's regular financial technology innovation, there's this cryptocurrency innovation that's happening. Then central banks are also trying to evolve money by using some of this technology for their currencies. All of that is on the horizon, and we need to understand, what does that mean for economic development, community development, and just finance in general.
Okay, so now you've given me my after Ramadan show, and I will sign you up. I'm going to sign off. I haven't spent nearly enough time. I'm going to ask our audience, please tune into the Jabbari Lincoln Files. Oh my God. And get on Facebook, get in the community, go on the blog, and just blog your hurts out. Uh, he's going to send out a survey. So please get in it. We got to have season 2, and season 2 will only be there if we pump him up enough to make it work.
Yeah, inshallah, that's what I'm shooting for, and alhamdulillah, thank you so much for supporting this and providing this opportunity and sharing this with the world.
Oh, look, let me tell you, you have a person online. Where is he from? I think he's named Sangoni Diene.
Is that
He's from Senegal.
okay?
And please tell everybody over there too.
Yes, yeah, I hear. We can say the country. At first, I thought I couldn't say the country, but Nigeria is in. It's in the preview.
I know. I can't. I'm holding back, dude.
Yes, but we can say Nigeria. There's all the Nigeria diaspora is. We know they're around the world. So the Nigerian diaspora is big. I think they're going to enjoy this.
I can't thank you enough, and we will, after Ramadan, do this financial. It is critical.
Yes.
And for the meantime, I want everybody get out and support the Jabbari Lincoln Files. Take the survey. Get online on Facebook and the blog, and let's just give this dude his due.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I can't thank you enough, and please stay on after, but I can't thank you enough. I haven't seen you in a minute. The last time I think you were fussing at me, but that's okay. And inshallah, we will talk again soon. This is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen for Critical Talk. I've had an exciting program with Yaya J Fanusie on the Jabbari Lincoln Files for Muslim Network TV.